This moment is all I can know. That's a great place to start, especially talking about peace this month, is in this now moment. In this now moment, that's all I need to know. This moment is all I can know. I am feeling refreshed and renewed and continually filling my cup. I hope you're doing the same thing. In my mind, I see you in my mind's eye, and you look fabulous. You look amazing and radiant, and know that that's what I know. That's what I see, and that's what I feel when I go into prayer and meditation and bring in the folks in this community. So I continue to affirm that with and for you, and trust that that is so. I've been feeling amazing and continuing to fill up my cup, as I said, by going as often as I can, about an hour and a half north to my family farm and up to Stone Mountain State Park, and just spending time up there, as I've told you a lot about. And I've been reflecting a lot lately on what it was like growing up on the farm. You know, my dad was a farmer and a chicken farmer, among other things. He did a lot of things. And I loved being outside. I loved playing in the woods, making forts. I'd make forts out of sticks or fallen trees. I'd make snow forts if it snowed. I would make a fort out of a cave, or I'd make a cave and then make it a fort. It's all about my forts. I love being in the woods. I love playing in the creek and being in nature and playing with the animals. And so when I read about a woman named Mildred Norman, who grew up on a poultry farm and loved to be outside and spent a lot of time in nature, playing in the creek and being in the woods, immediately I felt a kinship to this woman. But it was when I learned more about Mildred Norman that I fell in love with her, and that she became such an inspiration for my life. Now, many of you don't know this woman. Some of you may. Unfortunately, too many people do not know the story of Mildred Norman. But perhaps you know the story by her real name, her chosen name at age 45, and that is Peace Pilgrim. Mildred later officially changed her name to Peace Pilgrim. So here's the story of Mildred Norman, also known as the Peace Pilgrim. She says, "I'm a wanderer, I'm a pilgrim, and that's a wanderer with a purpose." She decided on January 1st, 1953, that she was heading out across the country from Los Angeles with nothing but a toothbrush, a comb, and a tunic that said, "Peace Pilgrim," walking 25,000 miles for peace. She ended up walking a lot more than that. But she set out in 1953 to do this journey with nothing but what she could carry, what she had on. And I'll tell you more about that in a moment. But first, I want to back up for a minute and tell you that her journey actually didn't begin there. It began when her peace journey really began much earlier, when she was around 30. She said she was having a really hard time. She was struggling with the fact that her friends were struggling, and it was weighing really heavy on her heart that she couldn't do anything to help. And it worried her so much, she was just so upset about it, that she ended up walking all night long through the woods. And she said she came to a place and just sat down and prayed. And she said, "I prayed, use me, please use me." And then this deep, deep peace came over her. And she decided in that moment that she was here to be this instrument of peace. And so here she is, 15 years before she became the Peace Pilgrim. She moved into living the way of peace. She moved into what she calls her 15 years of practicing and preparing to be the Peace Pilgrim. She prepared for her 28-year pilgrimage, because she didn't stop. Once she started at age 45, she just continued on. For 28 years, she walked across the country back and forth 7 times, zigzagging across and touching every state in the United States, going to all 10 provinces in Canada, going to many places in Mexico, continuing to walk for peace. She didn't have any money. She didn't take any money, and she didn't ask for any money. She never even accepted money. She would walk until she found shelter, and she would fast until she had food. Until she had shelter and food offered to her. She never once asked. That is fascinating to me. Talk about living on faith. She lived so deeply on faith that she never even asked. She just continued to show up. She said, I was just out there doing what one little person can do for peace. what one little person can do for peace. She said, I walked prayerfully as an opportunity to talk with many and perhaps inspire them to do something for peace in their own way. Thinking about not even asking, I heard an interviewer once ask her, how did you know like the right people to approach and the good people? And she said, I tell you that all people are good. There's a spark of good in everybody, no matter how deeply it's buried. And she also said what we teach in the Science of Mind and in New Thought is exactly what we teach. She said, the world is like a mirror. If you smile, it smiles at you. So she said, I just continue to walk as peace, to walk as love, to show up as that smile. In my song that I sing, Show Up and Be Love, I had someone ask me once, why does it say be the smile that you're dreaming of? I said, think about it. When you walk into a room, you're hoping you're going to get greeted with a smile. But oftentimes people walk into a room hoping they're going to be greeted with a smile, but they're not wearing one because they are already deciding that it's not going to be there. So we show up with the smile and the world smiles back is what the Peace Pilgrim was always preaching. We show up as the heart that we want to see, and it shows that it comes back to us. The world is a mirror. She believed in not trying to control or manipulate anyone else, but just showing up, putting out what you wanted to get, putting out being what you wanted to see in the world. You got to be it if you want to see it, showing up and being that. So one of the many interviews I've heard over the years, she has a book out there too. There's lots of resources to learn about the Peace Pilgrim. She's a fascinating individual. But one of the interviewers I heard once said, well, what about war? I mean, the Bible tells us that war will always be with us. She quickly said, actually, it says there will be wars and rumors of wars, but that prophecy has been fulfilled amply, wouldn't you say? She said, why would we seek to fulfill that prophecy anymore? When the Bible also said, they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nations shall not lift up sword against nation. Neither shall they learn war no more. Isaiah 2:4. Not going to study war no more, right? She said, perhaps the time has come to fulfill that prophecy. I say it has. That prophecy is the one it's time for us to fulfill. So this lady says to her once, I'm praying for you. I am praying for you. I'm praying for you. But of course, I don't believe peace is possible, but I'm praying for you. And she said, Peace Pilgrim said, wait. What do you mean you don't believe it's possible? She said, well, yeah, I don't. And she said, well, do you believe that it's in accordance with God's will? She goes, oh, absolutely, yes, absolutely. That has to be, peace has to be in accordance with God's will. And Peace Pilgrim says, well, how could something be in accordance with God's will and then be impossible? She said, I would dare say it's not impossible, that it actually is inevitable. It may not show up in my time, she says. It may not show up in my time. But I believe that good effort bears good fruit. So I'm going to keep giving that good effort. And I trust that it will manifest. And I just leave that how and that when up to God. I leave that up to divine. But good effort produces good fruit, she says. I leave the rest in God's hands. She was such a metaphysician. I don't know if she realized it or not, but she was definitely in alignment with what we teach. Because one of the interviewers asked her once, I know it's rude to ask a woman her age, but I'm going to ask, Peace, how old are you? And she says, I don't know. I really don't. I deliberately don't know. I decided when I started this journey that I was of sufficient age. So at 45, by the way, that's when that was. I did the math. So at 45, she decided I was of sufficient age and I didn't need to keep up with it anymore. She said, because we constantly create our life through our thoughts. Hello. New Thought, Science of Mind 101. She said, we constantly create our life through our thoughts, and that includes our age. So I decided I didn't need to know anything other than I'm ageless and in radiant health. That's your first affirmation for the day. Say that with me. I am ageless and in radiant health. I am ageless and in radiant health. I am ageless and in radiant health. She says, I haven't gotten younger, But I see no need to get younger, because once you've learned what you need to learn from the previous seasons, why do you need to go back to them? I am ageless. I am ageless and in radiant health. You see, in the woods that night, when she came to this place of just surrender and I know I'm here for a purpose, so use me, flow through me as my purpose. She identified that her purpose was to be out there doing what one little person could do for peace. And for her, that was walking and showing up as it. So she identified her purpose, and then she had the courage to live it. She identified her purpose, she had the courage to live it, and she did it with great faith, a deep, unshakable faith. I heard her say one time a police officer stopped and rolled down the window and said, "Get in, what are you doing? It's just the storm is coming." And she said, "Oh, it'll blow over." And it was like this terrible, bustling, looking like it was going to be really bad. And he's thinking, "Lady, are you nuts?" And she was like, "It's okay." She had faith. And the storm literally blew over right in front of his eyes. And he's like, "Okay." And she said, "I knew I was going to be okay." That was in the beginning of her journey. She always knew she was going to be okay. So she had her purpose. She identified it. She had the courage to live it. And she lived it from a deep, unshakable faith. Unshakable faith, right? No money. Let's just focus on that for a second. We live in a material universe. We live in this world that requires us to exchange, most of us anyway, unless we are Peace Pilgrim. Most of us live in a world, in life, that requires that we exchange this stuff called money. And we get kind of used to it. We've gotten sort of conditioned to it. And I know most of us can't imagine what that would be like to set off, first of all, walking with no food, no water, and no money. I mean, people have asked her, people kind of thought you were crazy. What did you feel? How'd you feel about that? She said, "Well, pioneers are always seen a little differently. And I was a pioneer for peace." Wow. I'm so inspired by her level of faith, trusting beyond a shadow of any doubt. Sometimes we all have had those moments where we have trouble trusting just from one paycheck to the next, or one bonus to the next, or one whatever, right? But she trusted from one moment to the next that she would have shelter, food, water, safety, whatever she needed. So a purpose, the courage to live it, and from a deep, abiding faith, that then, the fourth piece, she was able to do all of that and then come to this place of releasing all of the effort, not trying to control anyone or even an outcome for peace, but just releasing all of that to God. She was like, "That's not my job." Again, Science of Mind 101. The how is not our job. Releasing that. This is how we get to this place of knowing that peace is the truth of our being. Peace really is the truth of our being. When we get all the other stuff out of the way, like I talked about last week, and just allow ourselves to align with the pattern of perfection. Remember that? When we allow ourselves to align with that divine reality, then we can be at a place where peace is the truth of our being, where we can recognize that and live from it and know that it is the operating power of our life. That's your second affirmation for the day, that peace is the truth of my being. Peace is the operating power in my life. Peace is the truth of my being, the operating power in my life. Peace is the truth of my being, the operating power in my life. But you see, it needs to be where we live, not just where we visit. It needs to be the way of peace, where we live, not just where we visit. How many times have you been to a spiritual conference or a retreat or on vacation, and then you come back and everything hits the fan, right? Like anything that could go wrong goes wrong. Experienced that ever? I know I have. We call it re-entry. In the spiritual conference world, we call it re-entry. As we're leaving spiritual conferences, a lot of times we're like, "Oh, mindful re-entry, peaceful re-entry, good luck on the re-entry." Don't say luck, but have fun on your re-entry. I'll tell you a story about that. So here we are leaving the Circle of Love gathering, me and one of my teachers, David Leonard. Many, many, many years ago, we were leaving the Circle of Love gathering. We had been filled up to overflowing. We had visited peace that week. Man, we had visited peace. Now, David's peaceful most of the time anyway. And I am too now. But back then, I would have little respites of peace when I would go to a conference, and then I would be like, okay, now I got to catch up on all the stuff that I put on hold while I was at the peaceful conference, right? And so I was in that place of scurry when we left Circle of Love. As soon as we got in the car to leave, I'm like, okay, we got to go find a place for the ministers' conference, and then we got to get back, and then I got to get back and take care of church for tomorrow, and or next week or whatever. We got a lot to do. We got to go. And so David, I think, kind of caught into my scurry. And we left the Circle of Love gathering in Simpsonwood, Georgia, North Cross, Georgia, a place called Simpsonwood. And we were going south to a place, Banning Mills Lodge down there, to check it out for the first time, to see if it's somewhere we would like to have retreats. And we were looking for a place specifically for the Center for Spiritual Living Ministers Retreat that year, or the coming year. And so here we were. We're traveling, and we're talking on our phones back and forth, and he's like, I think it's exit blah, blah, blah. I'll know it when I see it. And I'm like, I'm following you. I'm clueless. So here we are. We're not using a GPS. I'm not even sure that was an option on our phones back then. But we at least have cell phones, right? And so we're talking back and forth. So we get off to get gas, or just to re-up our plan. I don't remember. But we get off an exit off of 85, and we're talking. Well, I think we got gas. And then I said, okay, I'm following you. He said, okay, I don't really know, but I think it's just a few more exits up. So the plan is we're going to pull out of the gas station. We're going to turn left. We're going to go up here, and then we're just going to turn right onto the ramp to get on 85 South. Well, we got separated pulling out of the gas station. I get finally able to get out. No sight of David. Can't see David anywhere. And I'm like, it's okay. He's on 85 South. I'll find him. It'll be fine. He'll slow down and wait for me. It'll be fine. So I get up to the on-ramp, and right as I'm going onto the on-ramp off of that road that we were on, right as I'm getting on the on-ramp, I look over, and there's David. And I'm going onto the on-ramp, and there goes David back the direction we just came from, looking down in his car while he's driving. I'm like, what is he doing? And here I go. I'm already committed. I'm already in the lane. I'm already on the on-ramp. Now I'm on 85 South going, hey, okay, what do I do? Turns out he had dropped Tinkerbell into his big gulp. Unfortunately, Tinkerbell was his phone. So I'm calling, it's going to voicemail. I'm calling, it's going to voicemail. It's going to voicemail. And I think I went back, or maybe I got off at the next exit. I don't know. I do know a divine intervention happened, and we found each other again. But it was like one thing after another, that sort of chaotic blah energy, the minute we left the place of peace we had visited at that conference, at that retreat. We had visited peace, but then we stepped right back in to a scurry energy, and it was chaos. We finally rolled up to Banning Mills. I mean, it was only, I'm going to guess, maybe less than an hour away, I'm guessing, but it wasn't that far. It was hours, many, many hours later before we got there, and it was dark, and we're trying to check in and call the people like, we're here, sorry. And so we get checked into our room, and we're just exhausted, like we have worked our little behinds off all day long because of the emotional drain of being in that place of chaos, right? So it's so important. That's why it's important that we practice every single day being peace. That's why it's important to just be in that place of really practicing it. Dr. Ernest Holmes says, only peace can enter the gates of reality and sit at the table of love. But in true Ernest Holmes fashion, the reality has a capital R in that quote. Only peace can enter the gates of reality and sit at the table of love. That's because he's meaning the divine reality. Only if we want to commune with Source, if we want to be aligned with the divine reality, then we have to come from a place of peace and love, or we're not going to be in alignment with it, and we're going to be out here in chaos and land of hectic scurry. So the Peace Pilgrim, she gave us a checklist for being the way of peace, for being a peace pilgrim. This is what she lived by. Be willing to face life and go beneath the surface. No problem comes that does not have a purpose and cannot contribute to your inner growth. 2, live in harmony with the laws that govern the universe. I'm telling you, new thought, this lady. Live in harmony with laws that govern the universe. Evil can be overcome with good, only with good. Evil can be overcome only with good. Now, in New Thought, we say evil is error thinking, but it can show up as some stuff that looks like the traditional definition of evil sometimes. But it can be overcome only with good. Only good means can attain good end. Only good means can attain good end. And those who do unloving things hurt themselves spiritually. Live all the good things you believe in. Live the truth you know. Step 3, realize you have a special place in the life pattern. You are unique and wonderfully made with a purpose. That's how I would say that. But she says, realize you have a special place in the life pattern. By listening to your inner guidance, you will be drawn to some role in the world. Do what you feel guided to do. Now, when she started out in her preparation years, let's just say, she was running errands. She was taking care of sick people. She was doing all these different things that she didn't, at the time, have expertise for or know how that really played into her purpose of being a peace pilgrim. But she said, my lack of expertise was always offset by the love that I extended. Show up and be love. Number 4, purify your mind, body, and spirit. Nourish your body. Keep your thoughts positive. Forgive yourself daily. Plus, seek to uplift others. Use the energy, I love this quote. She says, use the energy that you used to use to condemn yourself to improve your actions, motives, and desires. Let me repeat that. Use the energy that you used to use on condemning yourself in the direction of improving your actions, your motives, and your desires. Great advice. And finally, number 5 on the checklist of being a peace pilgrim. Release these things. Attitudes that do not serve the greater good. Attachment to material possessions. Debilitating habits. The need to control others. Worry. And a belief in separation. Now I'm going to spend just one more minute on that material possession because I could feel you through the internet just then. Some of you go, whoa, wait, you want me to give up all my stuff and go marching across the country? I'm not that person. I'll read it again. Release the attachment to material possessions. It's not the material possessions that get in the way of living our divine reality, living in accordance with divine reality. It's our attachment. It's not the love. It's not the material possessions or money even that get in the way of us being aligned with divine reality. It's when we attach more meaning, more importance on that than living in accordance with divine reality and living in communion with Source. So it's the attachment piece to pay attention to. So I'm going to read those again in case anyone's ears fell off and thinking you're going to have to give up all your stuff. Release the attitudes that do not serve the greater good. Release the attachment to material possessions. Release debilitating habits. Well, that's a good one and kind of a no-brainer, but think about it. Start looking at your life. Do you have some habits that are really keeping you from living your purpose, living it with courage, living it with faith, and leaving the how up to God? And then release the control of others. That's a big one. Check yourself in traffic. Check yourself with family meetings. Check yourself at work. Check yourself with your spouse. Release the need to control others. Let people be how and who they are. People ask me all the time, when's Angie coming home? I'm like, I don't know. It's awesome. I don't have to know. She's her own person. She frolics. It's fabulous. I love it. It's who she is. And I love that part of me that is able to say, I don't know. Release the need to control other people. It's such a fabulous, free place to be. Release worry. Release worry. You know that old saying, if you worry, why pray? And if you pray, why worry? So release worry. And last, release a belief in separation. Release the belief that we are separate from our ground of being, separate from our source. The interviewer said, this peace pilgrim seems to be a very happy woman. And she said, oh, I certainly am a happy person. I mean, who could know God and not be joyous? I wish you all peace, she said. Who could know God and not be joyous? Who could know God and not be joyous? To know God is to recognize that this divine source is good. It's pure goodness and love. To recognize that the divine, by whatever name you give it, is love, is possibility. It's the omnipresence, the omniscience, the omnipotence of that one power and presence that created all creation. So to know that is to recognize that truth, and to recognize, and when you recognize just the simple little piece of the omnipresence, that means belief of separation is blown away, because omnipresence means it's right here too. So to know God, how could you not be joyous? Peace is where I live when I choose it, and so I choose it. Peace is where I live. It's who I am. It's what I give, but it's a choice. I said that last week. I'll probably say it next week. I'm saying it right now. It's a choice. Peace is where I live, not where I visit. It's what I am, and it's what I give. I walk prayerfully, she said. I walk prayerfully. Let us walk prayerfully. Prayerfully, purposefully, peacefully, creating ripples of peace everywhere we go. That's what we're called to do. I believe it. I know it. I see it. And I'm so grateful to be doing it with you. Thank you. Namaste.